looking at any language, you're going to see that different parts of that language come from different languages, and it's going to help you assess how words are shaped, how they came to form, and how you can expect to interpret words as you learn them. It helps you learn languages faster to know where the roots of languages come from. And Welsh is no different. It has a lot of different roots, and I'm Ben Llywelyn. Today I'm going to tell you about that. Welsh is a Celtic language of the Indo-European family. It's of the Celtic branch, and of that family, it's of the Brythonic branch of that family. The vast majority of its words are going to come from Brythonic, and these are going to have a lot of Indo-European cognates across the Indo-European family. Quite a lot with the Latin-based languages, if you know what I love. So a lot of these Welsh words that come from Brythonic are very, very old and related to, in some cases, words in India. So take the word to buy. In Sanskrit, Krinati, and in Welsh, Prynu. That P and that K at the beginning, you're going to see that shift between those two across a lot of the Indo-European languages, and between Welsh and Irish. Irish kept that K sound at the beginning, Welsh didn't, or in some cases vice versa. It was a shift between the two in many cases. You have words that come from a common Indo-European root, like the word for swan. Alarch comes from the common Indo-European L, Brythonic Indo-European root, and this is the largest category of words in Welsh. And you get everyday words like glebe, wet, d, black. A couple ways to tell if words in Welsh come from these earlier roots. A lot of words are composed of different elements, of course, and a lot of these elements that they're composed of come from Brythonic, like cyfamod. That cyf at the beginning is kind of a coming together, a totaling, and the od at the ending is, depending on the use, it can be a plural or a state of being, and both of these are Brythonic roots. Cyntedd, foyer, an entry hall. That cyn beginning, that cynt bit, comes from first and entry, and the edd is a state of being first, and both those are Brythonic roots. So a lot of these words that begin with cy something are Brythonic in origin. Or you get like hedgehog is drainog. That OG ending usually denotes that it's from an earlier word, or it can be. Not in every case, because it's a suffix that you can just attach onto things. But the vast majority of words in Welsh are from this Celtic Brythonic root. What's the next biggest category for these words? That would be Latin. Latin had a deep and lasting impact upon Welsh in a way that was not seen in Irish or Scots Gaelic, because Rome ruled southern Britain for 400 years almost. And that, in fact, Welsh was in the process, or Brythonic was in the process of becoming a Romance language. Like French, it was going that way, it was in the process. And that's why it lost its case system, which Irish kept, and a lot of its root words, which Irish kept, and a lot of its sound phonologisms, which Irish kept and Welsh didn't. Welsh was in the process of losing a lot of what made it a Celtic language when Rome broke up and left. When Rome left Britain, Welsh was halfway through that process, and what we have is a Romano-British language, a fusion of Latin on top of that Brythonic root. Latin words are much easier to clearly identify than their Brythonic counterparts in Welsh, because Latin was a foreign language, and certain categories of words were assimilated into Welsh using certain endings or certain beginnings and certain traits. So most words ending in ech, or with an ech in them, come from Latin. Padech, from padella, a pan. Pabell, or pebill, tents, from pabilio, a tent in Latin. Flangell, a whip, from flangellum. And a lot of these words are for recent technological innovations in that period. The Roman Empire was steeply technologically more advanced than those around its periphery. Latin words were being absorbed into it, the emerging Welsh language, replacing words for everyday things. Pont became the word for bridge from Latin. Ffenestr, for window, or Latin. One of my favorite words in Welsh is the word for a quiver that you put your arrows into, cawell, which also means cage, but there's that ek ending in it. It comes from Latin. Scythe, the arrow that you put in the cawell, is from Latin. Scythe, the verb to shoot an arrow, comes from Latin. And a lot of words ending in e, the verbs, the action words, a lot of those verb groups, a staggering amount, come from Latin, such as pregethi, to preach, from pregetum. Korogi, it has an I, not a U, but those two letters sound very similar, even the same in some Welsh dialects. Korogi, to hang, this is from Latin. Gwerthu, to sell, from verdo. Cynnig, eisiau, abad, moronen, all Latin. Everyday words, things that we would not think were anything out of the ordinary, at that time were new concepts being introduced into Britain by this technological superpower, which they didn't have words for. New kinds of trees, cystan withan, a chestnut tree. That cystan root comes from Latin. And words for things that would have been traded, like feathers. Plien comes from pluma. So you can see how far-reaching this was. Many words today that begin with GW in Welsh, like gwir, come from V beginning words in Latin. Vero, wine, vino became gwyn, and it goes on and on. Hey, if you are enjoying this content, hit that like button for me. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr. Saxon left another deep imprint upon the Welsh language. Now, this is not English, and I want to stress that. Saxon and English are different languages, not just because of the former, Saxon having a case system, and English not even knowing what that is, but because they had different influences on them. And maybe I'll make another video explaining why Saxon and English are distinct and totally different languages. But that's not for this video. The point is that Saxon was influencing Welsh. And the words from Saxon that came into Welsh really have a mark of being a frontier, a transaction, things that you find on the boundaries of your civilization. The words for wall, a wall. Now, the Latin did give mir, but the two words have different connotations, and their connotations have switched over time as well. Pres, it used to mean just coins generally. This is from Saxon. Forth comes from ford. This is a road, and it used to mean more just of a dirt road. This is from Saxon. Shiglo, to shake. Kupan, word for a cup, came from coupe. And one that I like is the costro. This is a kind of a flask, a leathery flask that you would carry wine in, maybe. This is from Saxon. You can see that these words are a lot of times for items that you would come across when two groups meet each other between their territories. Aelwyd. This comes from the Saxon word for fire. Kuningen. This comes from konin, which is the Saxon word for a rabbit. So there's a boundary element. It's beyond the town. It's beyond the wall where these two languages were interacting with each other. And they were trading. Punt became pint, a pound, a financial sum. And sum comes from summa, And in Welsh it was sum, and it means slightly different than some does in English today. Raf, rope. This probably comes from Saxon, we're not sure. But you can see that a lot of these things are to do with quantities of things and things that would be loaded onto wagons and traded between these groups. And others, you get words for hunting birds. A gwalch for a hawk, and in Saxon, whale. I'll put it here if I'm not pronouncing it right, or if I am, I'll just put it there. And so you had words for things in different kingdoms for prestige, hunting equipment, and these hunting birds that were in Saxon. And again, this shows two worlds meeting on the edge of their peripheries, coming together, communicating with words that are the joining of two civilizations and agreeing where the boundary between us is going to be. The words in Welsh, which come from Saxon, very much denote we're establishing where the boundary between us is. You kind of stay over there, you know? I want to mention words that begin with CN, three of them in Welsh that come from Saxon. Cnav, Knap, Knock. And in English today, that C's been lost. Knave, Nap, Knock. And one element of Welsh that makes it a bit beautiful is that it's taken words from Saxon and kept some vague original shape from it that's been completely lost in English as it became English under influence of French. The Irish words that have come into Welsh are very scattered, and there's no set feeling to what the interaction was. It's very occasional, a bit of drop in the bucket here and there. It adds more of an accent to Welsh, a feeling, kind of an echo. It's a very light, sprinkled influence. So gast means brechdan, sandwich. Cadach is a handkerchief or a rag or a cloth, and it meant originally more kind of something that you could throw away, or someone that was a bit of a riff-raff. And it actually comes from the Irish word for calico. Erch gave us the root of the word erchech for horrible, and it comes from a word meaning speckled dark red, or a flustered, kind of a horrible color, really. You can see where horrible comes from. Scadan. This is herring in Irish, and this is an older Welsh word. I don't think many people use it much anymore, but it does mean herring in Scots Gaelic. I know that. And I know fishermen in Wales were using it well into the 1800s. And I hope people use it again, because I think it's a really beautiful word. And that you can see how that came from Irish for fishing and being on the sea. Cnook. This is the word for a hillock, a small hill. You get place names in Irish as well. So Clean, this place, comes from the Irish language. Brycheiniog, not the OG ending, but the Brychein definitely comes from Irish. So there's definitely an imprint of the Irish language upon the topography of Wales here and there. It's a flavour. It gives it a bit of a nuance. The Norse language, the Vikings. This left a very soft, almost indiscernible imprint upon the Welsh language, but it's there. Garth comes from Norse. It's garden. The word for an earl, like an aristocratic earl. Yarech. And a market, which is interesting because these two groups would have met socially in a market. That was probably the only place that they would have not been killing each other. Machnad comes from Norse. It's a faint imprint, but it is a part of the Welsh language. The next big imprint, and much bigger than either Irish or Norse, is Norman French. This was a culture that came into Wales under the Normans, and there was back and forth warfare for 200 years, then ruling through aristocratic families on top of the native Welsh population until English gradually replaced French entirely. So the influence of French upon Wales is very, very deep. French brought chivalrous sport to Wales, like jousting and tournament, palfrey, a lightweight horse, tour for tower. And what was the palfrey wearing but a harness? Where were they hunting their foxes? In an extensive park, PARC. That's from French, not English. And the hunting party came to be known in places as a party. That word's not from English. People actually think that word's from English and Welsh. Party is not from English. It's from French in Welsh. Came through French. And you get words for weapons of this era as well. Magnal, a type of early artillery. Albrast, a type of a rather advanced crossbow for its age. So new technological innovations for warfare that had never been seen before. These often came from French in that era. We're talking the 1400s by this point. Whereas tour came from the late 12th century into Welsh from French. One that surprised me is pitaen, meaning whore. I thought this came from Latin, but it came from French into Welsh. Panas, meaning parsnips. This, panai. This is French. And you get other words for food as well, which are very familiar to you today, from French. Crempog, a pancake. From crepe, of course. Guarant, a warrant. Breed, a chronicle, a prophecy in some cases. And these are early Old French, some of these, not French that's spoken today. Audel, a type of long poem. This is from French. And a lot of words came into Welsh through the poetry, the court love poetry in the 14th century especially. And that high chivalrous age left a deep impact upon Welsh vocabulary from French in a way that you don't get in Irish or Scots Gaelic. It's much more pronounced in Welsh. English, modern English, has left an astoundingly large imprint upon the Welsh language. Today, when people are speaking Welsh, it's difficult to hear them not use English words, just because the use of English is omnipresent. A lot of people, they do have a hold up about using longer words in Welsh, so they'll turn to English. Sometimes it's lack of competence. You have to remember that Welsh was banned from education, from law, from many fields of public life for centuries, and this has damaged Welsh in terms of being able to have competence using more academic vocabulary and legal vocabulary and economic vocabulary in Welsh. Some people, and this one I don't actually get, will not use numbers in Welsh. And what's unique about the English loanwords is that the more modern they are, the less Welsh they sound. So if it's from like the 1800s even, they often changed them to become more Welsh. So ongo for angle was quite early, but portfolio and desk are later. And so words changed much more when they were brought into Welsh from English earlier on. A lot of words ending in o, verbs, action words, come from English. Dawnsio for dance. Pledio, to plead. Pasio, to pass. These are all English loanwords. If there's a way to not use some of those, I try. But it's inevitable that you'll use some of them. 3 words that I want to mention that I hope people will just stop using, but they won't, are game, grŵp, and giat. The reason why these 3 words really irk me is they don't really even follow the rules of Welsh. Words change at the beginning, mutations, and these words just ignore these rules. And this is what English is doing to Welsh in a lot of cases. So game, we have the word chwarae, and this used to mean both to play and a game. Chwarae de chwarae, play your game. But now people would say chwarae de game, which doesn't really sound that Welsh, but it is part of the language, whether you like it or not now. Giat, we have wonderful words for this in Welsh. Clwyd means gate. Llidiart means gate. We have perhaps dozens of dialectical words for gate because it's such a rural thing. And what English is doing in many cases is it's replacing a word where there's loads of different dialect words. So people who speak different dialects just take the English word and use that instead of communicating with each other by using a Welsh word. Tebot for teapot, fram for a frame, a picture frame, sofa for a sofa. All of these words have replaced Welsh words, but as far as the percentage of words in Welsh that are actually English, it's less than you might think. But Brythonic is by far the biggest bulk. And after that it's Latin, not English. After that, third it's going to be English and then French. And Norse and Irish have left a little sprinkling, a flavor that makes it very a sweet language to learn. Hey, diolch yn fawr am wylio. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.